This is Creatorcon Q&A episode 125. I'm Phil Russert, and of course, I'm here with the great Kevin Eastman, co-creator of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Kevin, thanks for coming out again. How are you?
I'm great, Phil. Thanks. Pleasure to be here with you again.
Yeah, I have to say I've really been enjoying it. I mean, I enjoy everything that you've ever done. And Last Ronin has been very successful, and I'm sure you've been asked many times, but did you expect it to reach this level of success?
Honestly, no. It was something that when Tom, as the idea evolved as we were going through the process of wrapping up the 100 issues on the ongoing series, Tom and I were sort of looking at what we would like to do next with the Turtles, and I had mentioned this idea that kind of arrived at similar circumstances with Peter and I back in 1987. So we pulled it out, dusted it off, and read it, and then I spent 5 or 6 months playing around with it, sort of putting new pieces together, rearranging some of the things, all trying to keep the heart and soul and the foundation of what was originally done there. And then once we wrapped issue 100, Tom and I both jumped in with both feet, and a short 2 years later. 2 years later, here we are. Issue 5 is off to the printer, and we're excited to have it land and see if the fans think we did a good job in the end, because it's been quite an adventure to get there. 35 years in the making, practically. Yeah.
Now, I mean, the Turtles have gone through phases in life. Like, obviously, it was a more grittier book when you brought it out in the 80s. Then it became a cartoon phenomenon and it reached kids. And then you had the 90s live action, which was, it was a really great movie, but it was a little more of the lighter side.
Yes.
How did you feel going with such a dark tone when the Turtles have had, a lot of the people that follow them now love them from the cartoons in the 80s more than anything, in the 90s, I should say. So, how did you feel with going with the dark tone? Were you concerned it wouldn't go over well, or did you think it would really hit the adult audience?
Well, it's a great question, because I think we've been lucky. I guess you hear when you hear the term multiverse these days, it's kind of, I think, used and overused. I think they've always existed in different versions of comics that we've read, Marvel comics, DC comics, and certainly with the Turtles, we've been very lucky in that we've had our own multiverse. If you think, as you said, we had the original Mirage Black and White comics, we had the Archie comics, the animated version, and a bunch of different iterations along the way as things have evolved over the last 40 years. And I think that partly what was a comfort level going into telling such a real gritty story, and I say it's probably it's sort of our homage to my love affair with all things Frank Miller, is our homage to Dark Knight, and what he did with that, and that's what we wanted to do. But the original ongoing series that we've been doing with IDW has been intended and was intended for that older audience, the ones that grew up on the original Mirage or grew up on the original cartoon and still love the characters, but wanted something written for their age, directed at their reading level or interest level. And so the ongoing series has been pretty edgy, and the success that we've had with that, doing some edgier stories, within the ongoing, was even more of a bit of a confidence boost to go into the Last Ronin. But it got darker than we thought in some places, which is we let the story guide us, and the fans have been receptive, and so that's thanks. It's we
Yeah.
ourselves and hope for the best, and that's all we could hope for.
Well, I do think things are grittier more than ever in comics, so it's probably perfect timing too.
True.
Um, IDW is losing some of their larger properties at this point, the licensing. Do you feel that they might? I mean, I don't know if you have this insight, but will that make the Turtles more of a prominent part of the lineup, like maybe spin-offs? You've got new characters like Casey, Marie. Do you see that happening with IDW in the future?
No, it's a good question, and I've seen. I mean, I've known. From the original founders of IDW, Ted and Robbie and a couple of the others that originally founded. I've known it since the very beginning, and I've seen it go through a number of different changes over the years, and growth and growing pains and things. And I think even now, when people look at IDW and what its structure is some of the licensing stuff that's gone away, and they've gone into some more original creative stuff. It's the company's growing and changing and evolving, and so and our marketplace is doing the same thing. We've survived many different booms and busts and crazy times within the comics industry, and the COVID experience for all businesses, especially comics, was pretty trying for everybody. But my opinion is turtles have always been very important to IDW, and I think that they've either collected beautifully and put into print just about every single thing ever done with turtles. So they've done some just wonderful collections of all the original source material, and then spending the time and the dedication that they have to for the 100 issues, and we're now, I think, 100 issue 127 is coming out.
Yeah.
So their commitment to the ongoing series, and honestly, it's such an incredible blessing that the kinds of artists that are coming in, the writers and the craftsmen and the storytellers like Sophie Campbell, bringing their favorite turtle isms to light within the context of the IDW universe, turtle universe, I call it. So it's pretty energizing. It's pretty exciting. Even though Last Ronin on the one hand is sort of winding down as the final issue comes out. We love what we've created in the Last Ronin universe, and we've got some ideas of what stories we might be able to tell beyond that, but we'll wait because we're jumping back into all things ongoing with Thomas. Got a storyline called the Armageddon Game and some other things that we're doing, bringing back into the ongoing series. And there's already some fun stuff there. So it's going to be an exciting 2022 and 2023. So, yeah.
Fantastic. Now, everybody talks about the image boom and how they were the forefathers of things, but the truth is you and Peter, I mean, and you did it at a tougher time, I mean, it was really hard in the 80s. I myself have my own book I'm trying to get out there. What advice would you give to the indie creators that are out there, how to work with the market and the industry and get their book out there and known? And what are your thoughts on the indie scene currently?
That's it's a good question, and it's a tough question because it is, but it is an interesting. When I look at I've been lucky enough to be part of the evolution of all things comics. When Peter and I came into the business, we were already standing firmly on the shoulders of giants. You think of the Jack Kirby, Joe Simon studios to the
Right.
Eisner Iger studios to what Will Eisner did to the evolution of Marvel and DC, and so we rolled off underground comic books in that there was above ground and there was underground, and guys like Richard Corbin and Von Bodie and Robert Crumb and a lot of these self-publishers, Gilbert Shelton, who formed Ripoff Press, was gave an opportunity to people that couldn't get jobs at Marvel and DC and wanted to do something more original that wasn't Comics Code Authority approved and restricted and kept down for a young
Right.
audience. So our revolution, or our period where we came in, was just when that started to bust out, and we're lucky that it continued to grow as we all continue to grow. Guys like Frank Miller and Alan Moore and people that wanted to follow into the footsteps of European comic book storytellers, graphic novel storytellers, and do comics for grown-ups, because they're not just for kids, they're for all ages. So we were lucky in the timeliness of what we did and the growth that we've seen in the industry and the changes that we've seen in the industry. And I do get that question a lot. How do I break in? How can I get from this side of the table to the other side of the table where the one's signing? And we're lucky in that the evolution of digital comic books online, you were able to reach wider audiences quicker, more easily, build an audience globally, as opposed to, like you mentioned, in the 80s, it was tough because we relied solely on comic book stores. If you didn't go into a comic book store in your neighborhood, if there was one in your neighborhood, then you would have no idea that the things like, Cerebus Rock or Turtles or Flaming Carrot
Right.
or these things, even existed. So I say, get out there, utilize, your Facebook, your social postings, and build your audience digitally before you go into the expense of doing, the physical printing and that kind of stuff, because that can get expensive, and the distribution
Yeah.
is trying. It's a challenge to get things out to directly into comic stores these days. But again, stuff that we've done through Kickstarters and print on demand, and again, digital forums. I think there's a lot of opportunities to find your audience for your idea. So keep trying and keep pushing, and just get it out there, push it. That's kind of what we did back then. It's like, I remember, Pete and I jumping in his, Vega station wagon and driving to comic stores all over New England to do a signing, and only 4 people would show up in the early day, and that was great. We were like, "Hey, 4 people showed up."
Yeah.
But no, it's getting the word out there is much easier these days, and building your audiences. There's a lot more opportunities. So I wish you luck, and keep trying.
Thank you. Oh yeah, I'll just keep plugging away.
Yeah.
You're an inspiration, you and others. So yeah, absolutely. And here you are later, 5 movies in, and thousands of issues, and that's just wonderful to see. And you're still a fanboy. Um, how do you balance the business and the fanboy?
It also has evolved considerably, considering when we first got into it, it was I used to tell people in interviews in the early days, pre toys and cartoons and things like that, that the transition was quite simple, and not quite simple, but simply broken down into, in 1987, we were drawing and creating 90% of the time and spending 10% of our time on the business. By the time everything else took off surrounding the turtles, it was a complete reverse. We were then 90% of the time doing the business and 10% of the time doing
Right.
hands-on creative. But it was the opportunity to have say and control over a property that we created, which was the gift and the blessing. Because a lot of people that originally inspired us didn't have that right to not only control their creations and what was to be done and not done with them, or profit from them. So we were pretty lucky in that regard to that. So it's balancing. The business side and the creative side. And these days, I'm lucky that I've got, besides my wife Courtney and our small team with Kevin Eastman Studios with a website, we've got a very small company that you can check out what we're doing, how we're doing. KevinEastmanStudios.com is where you can find out shows we're doing, new products, new stuff we're doing, and just the latest and the greatest news. And that's great. So I'm spending more time creating and less time doing the business, but it's a nice balance of both. So it takes a while to get there, but luckily, we've got great people and a small group of us, and and we're all having fun doing it. So that's
And that's what's key, right?
yeah, that's
Um,
that's the gift.
now I know you got to get going soon. I don't want Courtney yelling at me, but I'm just kidding, of
Neither do
course.
I. Come in and just
Um, so last question is: have there been any talks about maybe a Last Ronin live action, and would they renew it as the '90s version of them, not the CGI version of them?
we'll see. So it's like, I think that Nickelodeon, who owns and controls all things turtles and has done a lot of wonderful things. I know that one of the last experiments that I thought was super in this area was super cool and effective was based on the Batman Turtles crossover that they teamed up with Warner Brothers and did that.
Yeah,
Batman versus Turtles, which I thought was a great little animated movie intended for an older audience. So maybe
right.
Last Ronin might find a path there or something else. But right now, Seth Rogen's 2023 animated turtle project is all eyes are on that. So we're sort of doing what we do best, and he's doing what he does best, and we'll see where Last Ronin might evolve to after that. But right now we're finishing Last Ronin while it's off to press, and now we're turning all eyes back to the ongoing series, which is we've got a lot of fun stuff coming up there. So.
Very
And
cool. And lastly, I know you mentioned your website. Do you any convention appearances coming very soon that maybe people can see you at, or just go to the website?
No, glad you asked. Yeah, it was like we're doing this month. We're doing Lexington, Kentucky, the very end of this month, and then in April is Huntsville. But yeah, go to the website and it lists I think 7 or 8 shows we're doing this year, including San Diego Comic Con. But we're yeah, go to all information at the website. Even I check the website to find out what I'm doing.
Very cool. I hope to get you at my convention one day. I run conventions in New York, so
Awesome. We always love the East
yeah.
Coast. We that's home turf to me.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, please, it would be great to have you and meet you in person. Um, thank you so much for affording me the time and again to speak with you. And thank you to Courtney and your team. Uh, I wish you continued success. Congratulations. And keep inspiring us with what you do. We appreciate it.
Thanks. Good luck with your project, Phil. Great talking to you. And yeah, you be safe out there. We'll see you soon.
Thank you so much.
Right, cheers.
Everybody, that's the great Kevin Eastman. Thanks for coming out, and we'll air this next couple of days. All right.
Thanks,
Take
Phil.
care, everybody.
Enjoy the rest of your Saturday. Woo!
You too.
Cowabunga.